and welcome to episode 14 of Soft Signal. My name is Varun. I'm joined by Aditya. And today we're going to continue our look back of India's tours of England. Last time we did the 2002 tour, which was probably the most memorable tour, in my opinion, since I've started watching cricket for India versus England. Um, we're going to continue on to two very different tours today, 2007 and 2011. So, what were your first impressions of those? Let's start with 2007. Where were you at that time? What was your relationship like with Indian cricket? Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, the 2007 series uh, was an interesting one. Well, firstly, because we won it. Of course, I was already watching a lot of cricket uh, by then. Um, I think this was also after the World Cup, if I remember well. It was after the 2007 World Cup. So I
Yeah, after
think
the ODI one and before the T20. Yeah.
yes, exactly. Yes, it's important to mention that because that was the start of the
Yeah.
T20 phase as well. So yeah, after the exit of India from the 2007 World Cup, it was after that. So I think just in general, people were quite disappointed with the Indian team. That being said, nobody in India will ever stop watching cricket completely
Yeah.
because of any such losses. But it was that phase in time. It was the probably not everybody was very confident about India's chances in England. um, i don't think um, I don't think there was too much of a build up towards that series either. Also, it was surprising because there were only 3 test matches. Normally India England series tend to have 4 or 5 test matches, but this one was just a 3 test match series. um, so there was that. In the end, we won the series, which was very surprising because it was an away series. It was after the loss in the 2007 ODI World Cup. It brings back fond memories actually, and a couple of interesting points also that we'll cover in detail as we talk more.
Yeah, it was, and we'll talk about 2011 later, but they were contrasting things, right? 2007 series, we had just had the embarrassing exit in the World Cup. We lost in the first round, and then we won the series. In 2011, we went from winning the World Cup to getting decimated in the actual England series. But yeah, 2007, there was a definite negative feeling in the air when we went to England. We had a short tour of Bangladesh in between that, and yeah, we had won that series, but Bangladesh are still not the best test team, and they were definitely not anywhere near uh, our standard at that time in tests at least. And then I remember there was even a surprise that Rahul Dravid was still the captain of that team because they had of course had the exit from the World Cup. Greg Chappell had then resigned, and we didn't even have a coach. I think Lalchand Rajput was the coach, and then they had Ravi Shastri for a while as well. But there was no Chandu Borde was the team manager, so there was no proper system. So with that in place, still we managed to um, go to England and win the series for the first time in 21 years, and that remains our last series win in England. So a very memorable Test series for sure.
Yep. Also, it was probably the last time we saw Sachin, Dravid, Ganguly, Kumble, all these greats of Indian cricket
Yeah.
play together.
Mhm.
So Tendulkar and Dravid actually continued playing for a few years after that. But for I think this was probably the last time all 4 of these guys played in England together.
Yeah.
So that was sort of already kind of an end, or the beginning of the end of one kind of era of Indian cricket. And then a few series after this one, I think, is when Dhoni took over the Test captaincy. Also, I think in 2000 and no, actually after this, it was Kumble who took over the Test
Yeah.
captaincy, and then after that, Dhoni took over. But there was already this transition phase. Dhoni was in the test team by then. And there was obviously a lot of talk about him as well because he had already done quite well in ODIs before this.
Yeah,
So it was an interesting series from that point of view. There was obviously slight changing of the guard going on. You could kind of see who's going to be the future of Indian cricket
yeah,
for the years after that. Also, couple of noteworthy mentions to the bowlers. There was um, there was Zahir Khan who was leading the attack, and it was a much improved Zahir Khan, right? So I genuinely feel that up until then, Zahir Khan was not a very good bowler. Like he didn't have too many skills.
yeah,
He had some speed and pace, but not too much of skill. But I think this was around the time where he had a county stint in England, and he developed a lot of skill in terms of swinging the ball in and out, seam movement, out thinking a batsman. I think
yeah,
this was around that time where he developed those skills, and those skills came to the fore in that series because he was one of the key bowlers. And then there was also RP Singh, who was a very effective bowler for a short period of time, starting from around 2005 up till probably 2008 or 9. He was quite a good, effective, useful kind of a seam bowler. So he's shown on that tour as well. And then of course there was of course Srishant, uh, never far away from a controversy. But Srishant was quite a good bowler when things came together, especially in those conditions. And I think all of them played a important part in actually helping us win that series.
yeah. And there was no Sehwag in this tour. So Sehwag and Harbhajan Singh had been dropped because they had been performing poorly. So the openers were Wasim Jafar, who was established for sure, and Dinesh Karthik. And Dinesh Karthik actually played a couple of really good innings at the top of the order. And real team effort because we didn't have their established stars, but at the same time, as you said, the middle order was like I think they were even better than 2002 in terms of they had a bit more experience. Sachin, of course, had the experience even back then, but a lot of these players like Dravid and Lakshman and
Yeah.
they had come into their own by then. But yeah, there's few memorable incidents, and despite all of these players being at the peak of their powers, none of them managed to get a century. And the only centurion was Anil Kumble, finally. And I think he had played more than 100 tests by then. He was a decent batsman, but I don't think that was expected at all. Uh, that's a good trivia question. Like, who was India's only test centurion? It's just good for him. It was a happy moment, but it was just a funny instance.
Yeah, it was a funny outcome. I think that happened to be his only test century for India. I
Yeah,
think so. So it was interesting. I remember there was a phase though where he was batting and he was really dominating the English bowlers. I think it was a phase between. I think he went from 60 to 90. He was absolutely dominating them. It was actually fun to watch. I wouldn't say that about Kumble the batsman
yeah,
too often, but I think it was good. It was back in the day when the Indian tail used to actually contribute a few runs.
yeah,
To come to think of it, because Kumble was a tail ender for India right from the beginning of his career. I think the highest he batted was probably number 8, but he did always contribute some useful
yeah.
runs, even if it was 15 or 20 runs. He still did that. Uh, so yeah, it's kind of a key difference, right? Because Kumble used to contribute runs towards from the Indian tail, and he was also very good at getting the opposition tailenders out.
Yeah.
So
That was
it's a
his
problem.
specialty actually. Like,
Exactly. So actually, it's funny because that's a problem we face today. Like like as good as the Indian bowlers are, they still don't get the opposition tail out very quickly, and they don't contribute anything with the bat. But thinking about those days in 2007, 2008, Kumble used to do a lot of both those things. So
maybe a recall for Kumble in 2021.
yeah, exactly. He couldn't make it as India's coach, but he did. But
Yeah,
things didn't work out. Maybe he could come in as a as a specialist tail ender,
Yeah,
uh, then depends on which which skill you're talking about. But
yeah,
he was quite special when it came to getting the opposition tail out.
yeah. Let's just briefly talk about that second test. I think, like that's the test we won, which made us win the series. I think pretty much like the 2002 Headingley test. This test was also a perfect test match. Like we made. Let me just check. I think we made England follow on. I'm not 100%. Oh, we batted second, so we got them out early, and then had a strong batting performance. Got about a 200, close to a 300 run lead, and then they came back strong in their second innings. But then Zahir Khan was just amazing on that. I think it was either the third or fourth evening where he just ripped through the English batting. Like he got about 3 or 4 wickets, and then that just set it up. So yeah, I mean that was I think a really strong team performance. All the batsmen scored in there. They all got close to 100. No one really got that 100, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was like the perfect batting performance. I think you've spoken about it with Zahid and RP Singh, but yeah, anything you wanna anything you remember from that match in particular?
Uh, well, I think the you're right. That it's the team performances that stood out from that match,
Yeah,
um, and I think the fact that we don't remember a particular performance
yeah,
is proof of the fact that the whole team contributed.
yeah.
So if you look down that scorecard, you'll probably find a lot of players with a lot of double-digit scores,
Hmm.
and you'll also find bowlers taking 2 and 3 wickets. So it was a good team effort, um, and uh, and of course, it's still such an important series when you think of it, because we've not won in England since then. The series, I'm talking about a series.
Yeah,
So it goes to show that a winning series in England um, is not that easy, and two, the fact that we were able to do it in 2007 makes it really special.
yeah. And then yeah, moving on from the test, we had a pretty memorable 7-match ODI series after that. Uh, and we lost the series ultimately, but we were 3-1 down, managed to come back to 3-3, and think we want to focus in. We were just talking before this started recording as well on the sixth ODI where we chased more than 300, which we had done in the previous tour as well, so we're kind of used to that. But this was Robin Uthappa, who was new at that time. He had just played a few ODIs, and yeah, just walking down the track and uh, winning the game for India with Ravi Shastri's horrible commentary. But it's okay. Uthappa more than made up for that. And yeah, in that same match with Yuvraj Singh bowling the last over and Dimitri Mascarenas hitting him for 5 sixes, and we all know what happened next. But yeah, that was one of the most. I think that was the standout ODI easily.
Yeah, that was by far the best ODI of that series. I think even today, if you switch on one of the cricket channels uh, in India, they run highlights of this particular match.
Yeah,
It was quite a good match, though. I mean, Robin Uthappa had, I think, he had already earned the nickname of the walking assassin by then. And if anybody had doubts about it, I think that match put those doubts to rest.
yeah,
It was quite amazing, right? He was walking down, hitting balls straight past the bowler for four, and also scooping them over fine leg for four. So it was interesting to have a batsman like him at number 7. I think just unfortunate that his career never really took off that much, because he was
yeah,
quite a good batsman. And of course, Dimitri Mascarenas is probably well, he's probably happy, right? Because I think he's the main reason that Yuvraj hit 6 sixes, and maybe not Andrew Flintoff. Maybe
yeah,
it was all because of Dimitri Mascarenas and not because of Andrew Flintoff. But anyways, who cares? I think I think what happened after that in the T20 World Cup in 2007 was pretty special, and nobody wasted time kind of likening the fact or likening the events to the fact that Mascarenhas had hit Yuvraj for 5 sixes, and then Yuvraj paid England the favor back by hitting by hitting Broad for 6 sixes a few months later. So yeah, it was a good series. I think in general that ODI series was also very high scoring. I think
Yeah.
there were a lot of high scores being scored and also some high scores being chased down. So it was an interesting 7 match series, and I think the fact that it finished at 4-3 showed that the teams were pretty well matched as well.
Yeah, and Sachin got out for 99 in the second ODI. Just want to mention that because that was actually in 2007 through that whole season, home and away, he got out for close to 100 in I think 5 or 6 matches. Because even the sixth ODI which we are talking about, he got out for 94,
Yeah,
and yeah, just an interesting stat I thought I'd mention because I was just looking at the scorecards and just remembered that time. It was he probably would have ended at something like 104, 105
yeah,
ODI international centuries if that hadn't happened. But
yeah,
yeah, great series for India 2007. Even though we lost the ODIs, like you said, won the tests. The ODI loss in some way had something to do with our T20 World Cup win a few weeks later. But let's move on to something not so happy, which is the 2011 World Cup. Not 11 World, that was very happy.
that was happy.
2011 India Tour of England, which followed the 2011 World Cup win. Ultimate high for Indian cricket. We had won the World Cup. We were the number one test team in the world, according to the rankings at least, because we had the previous year we had got that title. So there were a lot of expectations going into that series. Like we thought it, we did. There was a lot of talk about how India is just going to continue that success, and with the team that was aging, but there was still belief in that team. And then we all know what happened.
Yeah, it was a classic story of going from the highs to the lows,
Yeah,
because the World Cup, like you said, it had just finished 3 months before this series in England, and then we go to England in 2011. I remember watching the first innings actually of that series, and India was batting quite well. I think Sachin was on 70 odd. Dravid had also got some runs, and they were batting quite well. And then all of a sudden, one of them got out, and after that, it just seemed like they never could bat anymore. It was just one of those series where probably the stars of Indian cricket had all past their prime, and so many of them were still in the team. Right, there was Dravid, there was Sachin, there was
Lakshman.
Lakshman. I think Sehwag was not there even on this one, right? So, but anyways, the three of them, massive stars in the middle order, probably still very good players. Don't get me wrong, still very good players, but just past their prime. Dravid, however, still managed to score quite a few centuries on that series, but he was in that series, but he was the lone man standing.
That was his last series where he actually played. Like he got 3 centuries, so he was by far India's not fined as a series player of the series, but he always did well in England. So I think there was just, but yeah, he then had a century at home as well. But yeah, then in that the Australia series that followed, they all had a disastrous tour. So
Yeah.
yeah, this was just. So I don't know if it was a lack of preparation or if it was a lack, just a case of like it was just sad to see this team. So which had brought so much success to India in the past. It just gets get embarrassed um, test after test. Like the first test was kind of a wash. It was at Lords. Dravid got a century, but we always lose the first test, right? So we lost that by like 190 runs or whatever. The second test, actually, I'm just looking at the scorecard. We got England out for 220 in the first innings, and we got a lead of six. Like I remember that test. We were like in the lead with only 4 wickets down, and then we just collapsed. We had a lead of only 70, and then they just they just overpowered us in the second innings. But yeah, and then the third and fourth test were just I think we had given up by then. We just lost by an inning. So just it just got progressively worse. I think for India over that tour.
Yeah, I think that's also the first time where the lack of a proper seam attack in overseas conditions was
Yeah,
so visible. I think so. Zahir Khan started that series. If I remember well, Zahir Khan started that series, but I think he got injured during the first Test match itself, and then
yeah,
he
you're
was
right.
ruled out of the whole series
On the first morning, not
on the
even the
first morning.
yeah,
Exactly, and I remember that he had already picked up like 2 wickets or something,
yeah.
and nobody else had picked up a wicket. The 2 wickets had fallen. He had picked up both of them. Then he got injured, ruled out of the whole series, and then from then on in, it was like playing a test match without a proper bowling attack. So
Yeah.
I think this whole thing of needing really good overseas bowlers, or sorry, needing good bowlers for overseas conditions, I think it kind of started from there because we had hit an all-time low, I think, in 2011. So that series was a wake-up call for many reasons actually. Um, and then again, as you said, it followed another whitewash in Australia a few months later. So that whole 2011, the year of 2011 for Indian Test match cricket
It's
was
just
just
awful.
not a good year.
Yeah, 8-0. It was just embarrassing. And you mentioned Sehwag. Sehwag actually came back for the third test and he got a king pair. Not even a pair, he got a king pair. So that
Yes,
was
yes,
just.
yes.
And for him, having had such a great season in 2002, this was just. And it was the beginning of the end because I think he just played a few more tests after that and he played his last test in 2012. One interesting controversy, and I'd like to get your opinion on it, which I just read about, was the Yin Bell recall by Dhoni. Uh, we all know what happened. Just to refresh everyone's memory, it was the last ball before tea. Um, Thing was Morgan who hit the ball towards the boundary, and they assumed it was a four. It was not a four. The bowler, the fielder got the ball and threw it back, and they ran out. Ian Bell was just standing in the middle of the pitch, preparing to go off the field, and there was a huge controversy. There was like, oh, it's not within the spirit of the game. There was one camp which thought it's absolutely fine. They should have better awareness. And ultimately, Dhoni ended up calling Ian Bell back, which for which he got a Spirit of Cricket award recently, I think. But yeah, what do you think? What was your thought at the time, and has it changed since then?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because it's a professional sport, so you expect the players to be aware of what's going on at
Yeah,
every stage. So from that point of view, he should have been aware. But let's face it, they're not robots, right? The 22 people playing on the ground are not robots. I think I really think it's okay. It's good to play in the spirit of the game because that is what sort of um, lasts over a period of time, right?
yeah,
So that is what people remember the players who played the game in the past for. I mean, the fact that we are bringing it up today and then talking about the fact that Dhoni recently won an award for it is testimony to the fact that what I think, in my opinion, what was done that day was what was done that day was correct.
yeah.
I think yeah, it's good. It's good to play in the spirit of the game. I think there's no point trying to sort of sabotage performances and stuff like that. I think it's okay. Um, I think it was okay. I mean, at the time, of course, everybody in India at least was extremely frustrated because I think both Morgan and Bell went on to score centuries in that Test match, and India got hammered. But I think in the broader picture of things, I think the correct decision was taken.
Yeah, like this is international cricket. There should be other way. There are many other ways to get a batsman out. And let's face it, I think I think it was Praveen Kumar at the boundary. Like he was also not 100. I think they knew what they were doing. It's not like, oh, we just saw an opportunity and ran someone out. It kind of knew what they were doing. So yeah, there've been a couple of other incidents like that where I think Sangakkara was run out by New Zealand, and then Brendan McCullum has apologized to Sangakkara for that. And then so it's a gray area. There's not going to be one right answer, but yeah, I kind of agree that we probably were out of that test match anyway. I don't think we would have chased. any kind of score in the second innings, given how our batting was that tour. And there's other ways to get people out. If you can't, this is kind of underhand and not cheating, but it's just a bit sneaky, which we didn't, which we didn't need.
I, I agree.
And yeah, even we lost the test 4-0, but we didn't. We even lost the ODI series 3-0. It was a match series. Two matches were washed out because it's England. And then yeah, we didn't. We lost it. We lost the only T20 as well. So it was a winless tour for India. It's just I think the worst tour for us in recent times at least.
Yeah, I mean, going through an entire tour and not winning a single international match is a big deal.
Yeah.
So, and I don't actually remember that happening to India before. At least from the time when I started watching cricket. So I still remember thinking back at the time that how could we not win a single match on the
Yeah.
entire tour?
And how could
So
we not win the ODIs? Even one ODI after being the world champions like 3 months
exactly,
before.
exactly, exactly. So I mean, how things had changed so quickly from the 2011 World Cup win to this. So it was that tour really was an eye opener, uh, and it did shake up things a lot in Indian cricket. 1 year after that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the greats retired. Um, and Sachin carried on for a couple more years, but I think he was kind of. Let's not get into that. I don't want any controversy, but uh, yeah, it was a changing of the guard, and then finally, because Kohli was in the squad, he didn't play a test, but yeah, we saw Kohli, Pujara, Rahane come into the team after that, who have kind of been the mainstay of Indian batting for now close to 10 years, coming up on close to 10 years. So it was good for Indian cricket in a way that we needed this wake up call. I think if we had managed to lose that series 2-1 or something, we would have maybe not had those changes happen so quickly.
Absolutely, it was good in a way. You're right. And then of course they went to Australia and lost 4-0 again.
Yeah,
So
that was just the final nail. If
that
there
was
was
a
any
nail drop.
doubt,
Yeah.
uh, we finally that those were put to rest after that
Yes.
that series. But I hope you guys enjoyed this recap on two very contrasting tours, the highs and lows, and we definitely enjoyed looking back. Not so much for the 2011 one, but it's still good to put things into perspective. So I think that wraps up this episode. Next episode, we're going to be talking about the two most recent series, which is 2014 and 2018. And just before we go, don't forget the India Sri Lanka series is starting tomorrow. When I say tomorrow, it's at the time of recording. We're recording this on Saturday, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see that series as well, and we'll maybe just touch upon it as well in our next episodes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Yes. Thanks for listening.